For human beings, you have three different time waves, right? You got environment, you got biology, and you have culture, right? Before the Industrial Revolution, all those three things were in sync. Your biology changed with your environment, your culture changed with your biology. They're all in sync. After the Industrial Revolution, your culture went way ahead of everything else.
As an intellectually curious guy, some people might think that this kind of TikTok might draw some kind of ire or visceral emotional reaction out of me, but more so, I find myself progressively more intrigued by the kinds of behaviors I'm seeing because we're seeing behavior change so rapidly. There are about 5 things in this video that simply were not possible when I was a teenager. Not just having a cell phone in your pocket showing everyone all of your whatever she wants to show the world, but the products she's using to essentially turn human procreation activities into aerobics is now flex. And so if that is the new culture, then we have to redo all of the calculus because we're doing different sports and different rules on Mars.
And the artificial environment that you build, because your cities and where you live are not natural. You don't live in a cave. You don't live in the woods. You live in man-made structure that's artificial.
When I talk about the being on Mars and playing a different sport, it's simply that if you're trying to do your calculus by 1965 morals, we've seen our environment change many times over since then. And for this kind of picture, you might think, I can't believe that these women are celebrating divorce, but these women are living in a completely different environment than we want to believe that we're living in. And this is something to celebrate. There will be some men that see this kind of video and think these women need to buy a dog and die alone, but I would say that in an environment that's going to have more flashy things and more things that light up and play sounds and distract you from your emotions, these women are going to advance into their 50s, 60s, and 70s and have tons of things that are going to distract them from whatever potential emotions of sadness they might encounter, unless, of course, economic downturn, but that's a whole different video. That said, however, this video is a reminder for guys in the modern environment to remember it is the romantic ideal that is going to do us in. We have to grow past being romantic because that simply does not belong in the environment where women are celebrating this. There's some men that relish in the idea that these women are going to end up by themselves alone and they're going to be miserable. And I think it's important to get over that simply because these women are going to have the technology in their 50s and 60s and 70s to be distracted, one. But two, there's always going to be guys that, one, tell them what they want to hear and even simp for them. And if you want to hear what romance is and how romance can be weaponized against men so that basically men are performing to be loved, this is exactly what it sounds like.
OG told me this. He said, bro, if your girl come home, you done cook, clean, fold the clothes, did the laundry, put the kids down. Only thing she got to do is you. So I'm like, all right, bam. Put that in my... Then when they come home, all this is done, you know what I mean? It's like, you don't know how to react to something you're not used to. You used to come to the house, she probably on the game, smoking, you know what I mean? Dishes piled sky high. She mad, probably had a bad day at work. He ain't checked on her all day at work. Ain't sent her nothing, no text, no nothing. And then asked for $40 for a sack. Then you got like me, like, hey, you straight? You eat today? How your mental? You good? You need me to... I already went and did the little, you know what I'm saying, mulching stuff for your little flower pot and garden and shit. I heard you talking about something you wanted to put some new kitchen sinks and shit in there, appliances and stuff. I already called some people. I don't know how to fix it, but I got the money to get it. You know what I'm saying?
Most of us get our water from pumps and not from wells or rivers. Okay, we heat our homes. Okay, we're clothed, a whole lot of stuff. In other words, all of our environment is artificial. So as we hack onto and change our environment, we change our culture.
As always, a salute is in order for Beatrice Ibmore for the decade plus of work he's put in with the library of just conversation and thought-provoking content that gets people like myself to hear these conversations and then look at this gentleman performing in this new artificial environment and finding a place to get his needs met. Essentially, he's saying there are very high-performing women that are making a lot of money, and so I can tell them what they want to hear, and I can fill in some of the holes of their life that are not being filled in by a traditional masculine husband, and I can get all that I can handle. And this is a new way to find quote-unquote masculinity in a new environment that none of us humanity has never seen before. And the other side of romance, well, it's basically being him on steroids.
I'm not going to be a men's mental health sympathizer. There's enough of that going around, and majority of it is mollycoddling. I'm not saying that men's mental health is unimportant. I'm saying that men's mental health is not a priority to me. Men's mental health will become a priority to me when women's mental health becomes a priority to everyone. And for women's mental health to be a priority to everyone, we're going to need to see an end to patriarchy.
All of our environment is artificial, so as we hack onto and change our environment, we change our culture.
Men are only supposed to make your life easier. If he is difficult, he is not your man. He is a wild beast. Oh, well, I want to help him and I want to be here for him. Oh, okay, mama girl. Okay, trying to be his mom. Are you a princess or are you his mother? You don't even have a man helping you out?
All of our environment is artificial, so as we hack onto and change our environment, we change our culture.
Ladies, if you are thinking about having kids, if you are thinking about having another kid, only consider having a child if you are fully prepared to raise them by yourself. I don't care if you're married. I don't care if you're in the best relationship. You guys are soulmates. That person may not be there forever, okay? But more so than just taking care of the child, financially, if you are not able to take care of a child fully by yourself, you do not need to be having one.
All of our environment is artificial, so as we hack onto and change our environment, we change our culture.
Some might think I'm running these videos back to back in order to draw some kind of visceral response, but when you hear BGS Ibmore in between them say about the environment being artificial, you can believe this in an artificial environment where you can go to a place down the street and swallow a pill and make what you did for 2 hours with the guy you met at the club disappear. Or you can have a high-powered job and jet set around the world, and with a few cocktails or a prescription, you can make the bad feelings disappear. And next week, you're off to some trip somewhere else with your girlfriends. We can't wag our finger at women in this environment because these women have perfected a way of existing in this new artificial environment that makes them.
Men are only supposed to make your life easier. If he is difficult, he is not your man.
He is a wild beast.
All of our environment is artificial, so as we hack onto and change our environment, we change our culture.
The thing about living in an artificial environment is that, one, it's very easy to make a lot of money telling people what they want to hear because there aren't the same repercussions that there would have been before. But the second thing, which I think is more important, especially as men that want to be productive, is that you got to have some people in your corner that tell you the truth, that keep you grounded in what the actual reality is. The opposite of that, of course, is a PhD in psychology, waiting to pounce on the opportunity to tell women what they want to hear on information based on the old system that no longer exists anymore. That guys were with women for a lifetime because that was the culture. And in those days, those guys were doing very difficult work for very long amounts of time. And they relied on the softness of a wife to get them through the physical difficulties. But if you tell women in today's artificial environment that those same rules apply, they're going to buy it hook, line, and sinker.
Men are not good at this. And in fact, all the research shows marriage is better for men's health than women's health.
Because they've got somebody there.
And the men sort of poach off of the social network that the women have created, the friends, the couples, all of it. That's usually the woman's work in the relationship. And I'm using a heterogendered perspective here, but that is something that it's almost like the well runs over and the men are benefiting. If the relationship ends, men are not good at creating that for themselves. Women actually continue to maintain that. But if a woman, midlife, any part of life, enters a narcissistic relationship, the risk of isolation goes way up, so you no longer get those health benefits. So I say to everyone, please try not to isolate.
There are times when I look back at my own situation and wonder if it wasn't social media that made my marriage a casualty. It was a new entity that instead of having one man in your life, now you have every man on the planet at your beck and call if you show something that some guy wants to see. And if you have professors essentially telling married women, don't stay isolated from your friends, what are your friends doing all day? They're on social media, getting validation from guys and getting a feeling that there's something better out there. It's always going to be something better out there. This is that new artificial environment. And the only way you can deal with this as a man is to find some way to adjust to this new environment, which we are just on the breaking edge of. Again, I want to say salute to BGS Ibmore, not only for having the foresight to have these conversations as you're seeing here in this Google Hangout some 6 years ago, but also to leave them up as a way for us to check historical references, if you will, and use them as a living document. So as we're watching social media and the antics of women on social media grow ever more attention seeking, we can understand that these women are fundamentally living in an artificial environment that has never existed before. What's going to happen between now and, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, 5-10 years ago, hopefully, maybe longer, hopefully, I don't know. But what we do know as men is that we have to be tethered to the ground as it actually is. And what's more important than anything is having spaces like this that remind men what the truth actually is. For young ladies, I don't really know what to say to them, but it's important for us to remember these simple facts as men moving in this environment. Because if you get it wrong as a man, you might be a decade plus trying to fix that mistake. You got it, BGS.
After the Industrial Revolution, your culture went way ahead of everything else. So that force your and the artificial environment that you built, because your cities and where you live are not natural. You don't live in a cave. You don't live in the woods. You live in man-made structure that's artificial. You don't, most of us get our water from pumps and not from wells or rivers. Okay, we heat our homes. Okay, we're clothed, a whole lot of stuff. In other words, all of our environment is artificial. So as we hack onto and change our environment, we change our culture. So the thing is, your culture can only change as fast as generationally. In other words, a group of people grow up and they teach the next generation. And all the alterations will be slight. They won't be dramatic because they can't be. And slowly but surely, your culture will change. The thing is now, because of our culture, we're forcing our environment to change so fast that guess what's behind our biology and our culture. Our biology cannot keep up with this. Physically, your biology cannot keep up with this, and your culture cannot keep up with this. In other words, your culture, it takes like 100 to 150 years for it to have a complete cultural change.
Yo,
okay. What if your environment changes in 5 or 10?
You don't have to be Einstein to know that on average, young girls and women are using social media upwards of an hour more a day than guys are on average. The difference, of course, is that many of these young ladies are having interactions with the guys that everyone wants to be with, and these guys don't have to expend much energy, because if a woman picks you through a social media app, she basically likes the way you look and she wants to make you into the perfect guy. All you have to do is show up. And for the guys that are told to touch grass, many of those guys are actually doing things that are more rooted in reality. All of this leads to one simple conclusion. If you're a guy and you're not one of the men that open up your dating app, you have hundreds of likes and women waiting to just meet you and basically grovel at your feet and hope that you turn into Prince Charming, then you have to understand that the whole idea of romance in this particular environment is upside down. And essentially, you're just going to be the nice guy until she can be with the guy she really wants to be with. It seems a bit sad, but it's just what reality is. And the truth be told, there's nothing more valuable for a guy in this environment right now than to be in a group of 3 or 4, 5, 10, however big the group is, of men telling them the truth, holding him accountable. Not like you need to treat women a certain way, hold accountable. That's crap. But hold accountable like, hey man, I know how good you can be. I want you to give your best. I want to see the best out of you. And I'm going to be here to motivate you and help you out when you need help. And you do the same for me. If guys get in groups like that, we're going to be less susceptible to this barrage of social media that's telling guys essentially be what women need at the moment of what they need from you. And then when she doesn't want to be with you anymore, she's bored, then you suddenly become toxic or something that she doesn't want in her life anymore. And she could essentially ditch you because you're not fulfilling the purpose in this artificial world of plugging the right guy at the right time to make me maximum happy. Now, the fallout from women, I don't know what's going to happen there. And it's probably not going to be very nice to see, I'll put it that way. But you can only worry about the problems in front of us. And for guys, there's no bigger problem for us, especially guys that are trying to be on the up and up and be productive, than to get bad information and act on it. Get yourself a group of guys that are like-minded, that will tell you the truth and be with you when you're down and celebrate your ups, and work with those guys so that you can move through this world without getting duped. Because there are plenty of people waiting to feed your information to dupe you. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment below. I'll catch you next video. Take care.